My name is Brian Stack, and I have the honor of being president of the Ireland-U.S. Council. And it's a great pleasure for me to extend a warm welcome to you for our annual winter meeting here. And this beautiful beach club, which we're just so delighted to be here today. I only wish I could avail of the facilities of the beach club today, but it's not happening. You know, this time last year, I was in a hospital bed recovering from spinal fusion. And this is not an elective surgery, so I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. And we fast forward 12 months, and I have to tell you that it's much nicer being here at the beach club among friends of the Ireland-U.S. Council. I know that many of you have traveled long distances to be here, so I want to thank you all for taking the time to gather here in Palm Beach for our annual winter get-together. We do appreciate the efforts you've made getting here. These winter meeting gatherings have become popular with council members. This is our 24th year organizing the Palm Beach meetings. And these winter meetings were inspired originally, all those years ago, in part to support the Palm Beach Dinner of an organization whose work this council greatly admires, the American Ireland Fund, which last week announced that the total amount raised by their Promising Ireland campaign was over $226 million, which has enabled generous support for 900 outstanding organizations. Can we just have a round of applause for the American Ireland Fund? A big welcome to Kieran McLaughlin and John Fitzpatrick of the American Ireland Fund, who we're pleased to have with us here today. I see John sitting there. Kieran is here somewhere. And, yep. Of course, none of these council winter meetings would have been possible without the enthusiastic encouragement and great support we've always had from Cynthia and Mike Gibbons. And can I say that all of us know that Cynthia has had her challenges, health challenges, over the last year, and we really are delighted to see her looking so well and with us here today. Cynthia, we're so thrilled to see you. Before I ask Mike Gibbons to say his words of welcome and to shepherd the proceedings from this podium, I want to add that this is an exciting year, both in the United States and in Ireland. Both countries are going to have elections and will have the opportunity to vote in the next government in each country. In November, the same opportunity will obviously be afforded to the American electorate. Also this year is the centenary of the 1916 Rising that forged the creation of the modern Irish state. So there's a huge amount of things to keep an eye on this year. You know, you'll hear a lot about 1916, and it's well worth, those of you who are not totally familiar with this, just read up a little bit about what that entailed. But basically it was the start of Ireland becoming a republic. And before that, it was part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, and today it is a republic. So that is where this whole 1916 comes in. But it's well worth reading up on it because it's a really interesting time in Irish history. People say to me, Brian, you always seem to be so serious. Well, the reason for that is because I tend to always be introducing the past president of the Ireland-U.S. Council, Mike Gibbons. So we can't have two funny people at the podium in the same time. So Mike, I want to give you a warning that my turn is going to come to be funny, okay? But right now, people have said to me, geez, you always seem to be so serious up there. I mean, so okay, I'm serious at the moment, but one serious thing I have to do is to introduce you to the chairman of our winter meeting and the best supporter that this council has ever had, and who had the role as president until recently. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Gibbons.
so good to see Brian. Which one? This one works? You can hear me all right? Yeah. So good to see Brian feeling well and up and around. You look good. Brian has one of those huge, big golf swings, and he hits the ball a mile. Most of us don't have to worry about that problem, but I'm sure his back can handle that, you know. But it's wonderful to be here, and thank all of you for being here. First, everybody can relax. We're not fundraisers. No fundraising here. So enjoy yourself. February is the month that we honor in the United States the memory of our first president, George Washington. And I have a few quotes that George Washington said about the Irish. George Washington spoke these words in gratitude and encouragement for the Irish. Ireland furnished 100 men for every single man furnished by any other nation. Ireland, thou friend of my country and my country's most friendless days, accept this poor tribute from one who esteems thy worth. May God in his justice and mercy cause the sun of freedom to shed its radiance on the Emerald Isle. That's George Washington. There are many people here that have been important to the Council over the years and important to Ireland over the years, and I'll mention a few. First, the Council has been welcomed in Palm Beach for many, many years, and one of our big welcoming hosts for many years, okay, thank you, was Walter Ross. So a warm welcome for Walter and Helen Ross, right here. And then from the early days, one of our big supporters was Bill McNally from Boston. Where's Bill? Let's say hello to Bill. There he is, way back there. And as they say in the Bronx, someone has to get you the hall so you can have a racket. And Doug Rogers got us the hall this year. Thank you, Doug. Thank you. This woman has done more for Ireland in the last 20 years than when the council members talk, than anybody we know. She's also done more to promote Irish culture here in America and to promote cultural ties between Ireland and America. And Loretta Brennan Glucksman and her late husband, Lou Glucksman, they're here with us today, and she's here with us today, and let's give her a warm welcome. Loretta's right here. Okay, thank you. And also sitting at that table, we have the stock exchange people from Dublin, and also Tom Ryan, the former president of the American Stock Exchange, is right there sitting with them, right here. Tom. And on the cultural side of things, we have George and Betsy White with us, and they founded the Eugene O'Neill Theater in Connecticut. It's a big, to promote Eugene O'Neill, one of the great, great American playwrights. They're right here. And David McCoy is here from the York Theater in New York. David, the president, we welcome him. And Ireland's National Theatre, the Abbey Theatre, has played an important role in Irish society, especially in this 1916 rising centenary year. And it is represented here today by Una Desire and Georgina Neal, and they are both very welcome. And it's also, I'd like to note that Loretta Brennan Glucksman will also be their honorary chair of the 216 Tour of America by the Abbey Theatre. So that's another great thing that's going to happen. The Royal Irish Academy of Music has collaborated with Juilliard, and they're going to do some commemorative events of Easter 1916. And so Audrey Phelan is here from the Royal Irish Academy of Music in Dublin, right over here. Where is she? Right there. Yeah. Good. Welcome. Okay. I now would like to introduce you to Ireland's Consul General, Shane Stevens, and he will introduce our next speaker. So Shane, please come up right here. This young man is in Atlanta, Georgia, and he's come down here today to be with us here today.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that very warm welcome. It's really an honor to be here before you today. And it's a particular, as we've just heard, I'm the new Consul General of Ireland based in Atlanta. And I cover 7 states, including, very fortunately, Florida. And it's an absolute honor to be here. And it's a particular honor that I've been asked to introduce Dr. Michael Murphy, the President of University College Cork, who is one of the most esteemed academics and university leaders that we have in our country. So it's a great honor. And I just want to say 1 or 2 things about Michael Murphy before I hand over to him. Of course, President Murphy is a big figure. He has an enormous reputation in Ireland, and that's mainly down to, I think, the huge role he had in building up the College of Medicine at University College Cork. He has built up the scale, the quality of the institution, and he's brought in a huge amount of investment into that school. And that's one of the things he's best known for. Also, I have personal knowledge from my time working in the Irish Embassy in Malaysia, also covering Thailand, that President Murphy has also played a huge role in driving forward the internationalization of the Irish third-level system. He's played a huge role in ensuring that UCC engages fully in countries like Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. He's brought huge numbers of students from these countries back to UCC. This is something which is of huge importance from the perspective of the Irish government and the Department of Foreign Affairs. These young people that come to Ireland, of course, are paying fees. They're contributing to the financial health of UCC, but they're also doing other important things. These young people end up as being friends of Ireland. They come to know Ireland well, and in the future we expect that they will be, in a way, ambassadors for Ireland overseas. And these young people are especially valuable because they're coming from some of the fastest growing economies in the world. So the work that UCC has done to build up these relationships is really a big investment in Ireland's future, in our network, in what we call these days our affinity diaspora. So we're extremely thankful to what UCC and Dr. Michael Murphy has done. Moving on, I know that today Michael Murphy has a particular focus for his address. He's going to talk about the famous Dr. George Boole, who was many, many years ago the professor of mathematics at University College Cork, and whose work has been a cornerstone in the development of the digital age, in the development of the internet and all the technology that bases so much of what happens in our economies today and in business. I'm very glad he's talking about this subject because not only was Ireland a leading country in the development of science and mathematics hundreds of years ago, but today Ireland is the location for 10 of the top 10 on the internet companies. So companies like Facebook, Google, and many, many others find Ireland the best place to locate their companies. That's something I'm very proud of today, and I think this is a great link. It shows that this tradition we have, this strength we have, has depth, and it is something we can be exceedingly proud of. So that's enough from me. Let me hand over to Dr. Michael Murphy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shane. It's all downhill from there. May I say for a start that it is a privilege to have been invited to be up here as opposed to being down there, which I have done for about 6 or 7 years, and I will try to make sure that I keep the standards that have been set here by Mike and Brian and all your colleagues over the years. It's an honor. I heard Mike say at the outset, this is not a fundraiser, this is all about business. And I'm a university president, so I took that very seriously. So I'm talking about business over the next few minutes and how in Ireland, a long time ago, the platform for $4 trillion of today's business was established by a gentleman called George Boole. Now, if you want to be world famous, there are a few things that you must do. You do something really innovative. You try not to be too far ahead of your time, and you should do it in an influential place where you'll be noticed. Boole did just one of those things. He did something extremely important, 100 years ahead of his time, and he did it in a place called Cork. But he created something that impacts every single one of us today, something important. So I just thought I'd show a couple of slides to give one or two additional bits of information on the family, which of course was fascinating. And if we just get my... So there he was. Missed on that clip was that a Google search for the word Boolean as an adjective with a lowercase b returned 40 million pages, just slightly behind Einstein. But of course the problem was nobody knew that there was a guy called Boole. Our job was to make sure that Boole equals Boolean equals UCC, of course. And we have been working hard on it. He has been recognized in recent years for what he is. There's a crater on the moon now named after him, and he has his own asteroid. He left 5 daughters, all of them famous mathematicians. The world's first the United Kingdom or British Empire's first professor of chemistry was a daughter. A son-in-law invented the first artificial baseball thrower, which is relevant to this particular audience. And on the right, his very famous daughter, Ethel Lillian Voynich. She wrote The Gadfly, and it sold millions of copies in Russia and China. Every Russian knows of Lillian Boole Voynich. George Bernard Shaw dramatized it. It was filmed twice, and Dmitri Shostakovich wrote the score for the movie. Some of you will know the Gadfly Suite. It's a very popular piece of classical music. You might not know that he was also the fundamental building block for the character Moriarty in Sherlock Holmes. If you recall, a professor of mathematics in a small Irish university. I hasten to add, he did not share Moriarty's moral codes. And there's a book on this subject coming out this year. So I'll just go back for 1 second. So we set out to bring Boole to Palm Beach. Now, in the past year, he has been at the United Nations. We had a symposium on World Statistics Day, and a resolution of the General Assembly recognized him. He's been honored at the European Parliament, the All-Russian Festival of Science, the Computer History Museum in Silicon Valley, the Indian Institute of Technology, and so on. And on his birthday, we did meet our KPIs. He was the second most tweeted subject in the world on that day. He was the most searched topic on Wikipedia in all languages, and there were roughly 100 million Google searches, thanks to a global doodle shown everywhere except Mexico and the United States of America. I'll park that one. And I understand that we should have paid some $26 million for that exposure. I hasten to add that we did not. So we are in the business of recognizing genius that worked in a small city, in a new university, that impacted our global life in this era. Claude Shannon at MIT, 1937, was the chap who saw the significance of his work and applied it to electrical circuits and controlling the passage of information through them. So if you happen to be in Boston next month, on the 18th of March, you can join us at MIT for a day-long symposium on Boole and Shannon. My last message, really, of course, is that as a university president, I must listen to Mike Gibbons' instruction that this is not a fundraiser. and it isn't. I just want to share with you a university investment opportunity. We have, unfortunately, got the house in which he wrote the book on the left-hand side. It was in private ownership since the 1770s. It was a mansion that housed a merchant family. But in recent times, owners weren't merchants, and it fell into disrepute. And I came under fire on the web because somebody decided that a web campaign might get me to do something. And 1,100 scientists from around the world have been excoriating me for the last year or two. So we have taken it into university ownership. It is a piece of global heritage. It is where the book that enabled your smartphone and your car and just about everything you do was generated. And here, when we have finished with the restoration, we will have a house of thought to honor Boole, and it will enable brains from around the world to come to Ireland and inspire talented young kids in our universities. We have about 21,000 of them at the moment, and they need some inspiration, but there's nothing like a local hero, which was another David Putnam movie, by the way. And our other contribution is that it will, because through its ground floor becoming a museum of Boole memorabilia, become a part of the cultural tourism of the city of Cork. So it has got a local and a global significance. Investment is welcome. You can direct me to such investors, as I am not, under any circumstances, calling upon you under Mike Gibbons' instructions. But it would be nice to have the next economic revolution birthed in Ireland, not in Shanghai, not in Mumbai, not in Pyongyang. And this is the means by which we hope to have a new Boole emerge in Ireland sometime in the next 100 years. So watch the movie for the full story, but I hope that I have brought something new to you to your lunch today. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murphy. That was really fascinating. Real ties between Ireland and America. Now, it was inspired by the Irish government. This council was inspired by the Irish government, and when President Kennedy got elected. The Irish, at that time, when you think back to the 60s, if American corporations that were doing business in Europe and needed a presence in Europe, they would fly right over Ireland. And you would build a plant or something in Switzerland or England or somewhere else. So the Irish government asked Kennedy to pull together businessmen and advisors and to help them. How could they get some inward investment from American corporations? And the government was advised they had to improve their road system. They had to improve their universities. And for years, the head of every university in Ireland was a scientist. And then they had to do something about their corporate tax rate. They had to have a light touch of regulation, and they had to, the government should be friendly to business. So, and today there's over 600 corporations, American corporations, doing it with a presence in Ireland. So it has all worked out very well, and so this council, it continues to promote Ireland and U.S. business relations. And so we have members here and we have members in Ireland. And we have a great annual agenda. I'll just read you a few of the events that we have. Next event is March 16th in New York, which is always our St. Patrick's Day luncheon. It's very interesting. And then we go to Dublin on April 15th, and our speaker will be Susan Denham, and she's the first woman Chief Justice of Ireland's Supreme Court. So it'll be interesting to hear her. And then on June 9th, every year we bring out students from the universities and we get them summer internships with corporations that are affiliated with the Ireland-U.S. Council. And we also provide housing and through a partnership with Fordham University, but we also send students to Chicago, wherever. We give them a stipend and we help them with the housing. And these students are the best and the brightest. They're not my relatives. Someone said probably Gibbons's relatives are coming out. No, they are not my. These are really bright students, and they're picked by the university presidents, and they spend 6 weeks here every summer. And we've been doing it for years. And they go back and return to school in Ireland. But they've had experience in their field, whatever that is, and that's all matched up. So we have a luncheon June 9th where we honor them and welcome them here in the United States. Now, so that's what the council does, and we welcome members both in Ireland and in the United States. Now, to introduce our next speaker, please welcome the representative of Northern Ireland, the Northern Ireland government, and he's come down from Washington, D.C. And so please welcome Norman Houston, who will introduce our next speakers. Please come up, Norman.
Mike, thank you very much for allowing me to say a few words over this beautiful luncheon. I was just looking at the photograph of me there, and I realized that cataract surgery and the Atkins diet certainly pays its dividends. But anyway, I'm very privileged to be here. I am the diplomatic representative of the Northern Ireland government to the United States. We're a very small unit based in Washington, D.C., with one office in New York, and Lorraine Turner from my New York office is with us today. We represent Northern Ireland throughout the United States and indeed Canada, and we really couldn't do our job without the support of the Irish Consular Network and the Irish Embassy. And I'm delighted today to meet Shane Stevens, the newly arrived and much welcomed Irish Consul General to Atlanta. We rely so much on the Irish government, as I say, for support. It's also wonderful to be here with Mike Gibbons and David O'Sullivan and Brian, who have been so wonderful to us over the years. I have the dream job in the Northern Ireland Civil Service, working in the United States, representing a country that I am so proud of. The country that I represent now is not the country I grew up in the 1970s and the 1980s. It has changed dramatically and for the better. We have devolved government now in Northern Ireland that we never had before. We now have had the longest period of devolved administration in Northern Ireland since 1972. That political stability has brought about inward investment and tourism at a level we could never have expected. And we have a government that is working very strongly for all the people of Northern Ireland. Just before Christmas, we had a major agreement between the parties to look at very contentious issues such as the past, parading, national identity, and social cohesion. But also, equally importantly, we agreed a way forward on corporation tax. And on the 1st of April 2018, for the first time, the entire island of Ireland will have a 12.5% corporation tax for inward investors. It's going to be a game changer for our society. The executive for many years has wanted to recalibrate the economy from too much of a reliance on the public sector to encourage more private sector jobs. Even the most modest economist reckons that in the next 10 years we will create 33,000 new jobs and increase the gross value added of our economy by $6 billion. That would not have been, we could not have done that without having a devolved government that was worth fighting with the British Treasury to allow us to be the only region of the United Kingdom to introduce that lower rate. Tourism is also taking off, and not least because of the exceptionally good talent of our golfers, Graham McDowell, Rory McIlroy, and Darren Clarke. And actually this week, and I'm not a golfer, I had the pleasure of dining with Graham McDowell on Tuesday night in New York, and thanks to the wonderful John Fitzpatrick, chairman of the American Ireland Fund, I dined last night with Rory McIlroy. So my son at least is proud of me if I don't understand golf. I don't want to say any more at this stage. I do want to say something about Loretta Brennan-Glucksman, and she was mentioned earlier. My first job on arriving here in December 2007 as the Northern Ireland diplomat to the United States was to arrange the first visit by the Reverend Dr. Ian Paisley, sadly deceased, and Mr. Martin McGuinness as our first and Deputy First Minister. I was in the job 6 weeks. I was absolutely panicking that this would work because these two people were diametrically opposed to each other in terms of their political persuasion and their national identity. We didn't know what to do with them in New York. And Loretta offered us her home, her beautiful home in Lafayette Street in downtown Manhattan, to bring these two men together. She was so wonderful and kind to them. Dr. Paisley at that stage was also quite elderly, and she was so gracious. And that one dinner that night at the beginning of that trip set the scene for a positive relationship between the two men for the rest of the trip. And I will be eternally indebted to Loretta for making my job so much easier. But ladies and gentlemen, you've heard enough from me. It's time for the next speaker. And the Irish Stock Exchange has always had strong ties with America, a relationship that continues to this day. In recent years, it has become a major global hub for international fund and debt securities. To tell us more about Europe's leading gateway exchange, please join me in welcoming Aileen O'Donoghue and Gerard Scully from the Irish Stock Exchange. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Norman, for that really lovely introduction. It's an absolute privilege and honour for us to be here with you this afternoon. It's a little awe-inspiring. There's some very significant Irish-American legends here, so we really are delighted to have this opportunity to meet with you and tell you a bit about what we're doing in the Irish Stock Exchange. And how did it happen that we are here? About 18 months ago or so, Marge Duffy and some of her colleagues from the New Ireland Fund came to Dublin to talk to us about what we were doing in terms of the pipeline and how the exchange was performing and how the Irish economy was performing. And I must have said something right, because she suggested to, I think, the council that you extend an invitation to us to speak with you today, which I'm delighted to do with my colleague Gerard Scully. And Marge won't let me out of the room unless I say MISE-IRL. Isn't that right, Marge? So I suppose before we start, I just want to endorse what Ciara McLaughlin said last night about where we are in the Irish economy. Things have been going pretty well. We're looking at a forecasted growth rate this year of about 6%. Unemployment is coming down to around 8% and still dropping. And debt is down, borrowing is down. And we're really hoping that that continues and that the momentum that we have in this recovery is sustained. We've gone through an awful lot of pain, and there's been a lot of hard work done, not least by Irish companies who continue to put their best foot forward. And it's interesting to note that the ISIC was up 30% in 2015, which is pretty much the best European index performance that took place in 2015. And still there's an awful lot of ambition, and I guess that's why we're here. So maybe just to talk to you a little bit about the exchange first. The first thing is that we are one of the oldest exchanges in the world, formed in 1793. We have a bit of a debate with the New York Stock Exchange as to who is technically older. Since we're in the States, it would be rude of me to insist that we are the oldest, so we'll let that one go. We remain independent. But we've had very strong links with the US going back to the 1800s. I think Brian mentioned earlier a little bit about the significant anniversary that we're having this year in Ireland, the 100th anniversary of the 1916 Rising. And he did mention also that it's a complicated story and it's well worth, obviously, looking at. But for us, it's a particular story in the exchange in that when the Easter Rising happened, the business community in Dublin was seriously unimpressed and recorded their displeasure and wrote to the British monarch at the time, expressing their strong loyalty and continued loyalty. And so it was very clear that even though years later things evolved, at that particular time it was a little bit different. So that's just to give you a bit of a flavour as to the background of the exchange and a little bit of history. I'm going to hand over to Gerard to talk a little bit about how we're doing today.
Thank you very much, Aileen. Certainly for those of you who are interested in 1916, there's some very interesting perspectives looking through the archives of the New York Times. And certainly for myself, it's quite interesting to see how America viewed the Rising. I think the New York Times were sort of looking at the various interest groups and probably hedging their bets, so nothing much has changed over time. I suppose in terms of commemoration of the event, one of the more unique events which is happening in Ireland is a competition among school children, which is sponsored by Microsoft. For those of you that have grandchildren, you may be familiar with a game called Minecraft. I have an 11-year-old son, and Microsoft have commissioned a competition among school children in Ireland to build a game which commemorates 1916. So that's pretty fascinating stuff. Anyway, in terms of the present, as Aileen mentioned, we're pretty much an outward-looking exchange now. We've achieved primacy in a number of fields. We're now globally number one for the listing of international structured bonds. Strangely, you may find strange, we're also number one for the listing of international Sukuk and Islamic finance bonds. Again, this is, I suppose, a function of our reputation in the marketplace. And we're also number one for the listing of hedge fund and alternatives. Oops, sorry. So, how have we achieved this success? I suppose we would say we're talented people with ambition. I think it's good, I suppose, the example which Irish Americans have given to us. I know myself, when my relatives came back to visit during the summer, and we would look at these people in amazement and say, how can people be so confident? And I think we said, yeah, perhaps in years we can take that confidence and bring it forward, and that's something that we can leverage off of. And we've been, I think we're beginning to achieve that. I think it's very important to realize that it's a young country, it's a country which is developing over time. Aileen has pointed to the economic successes of recent times and obviously the economic hiccups as well. But I think we're learning how to stand on our own 2 feet. And we've learned a great deal, I think, from that which has been, I suppose, demonstrated to us by our forefathers who went to the United States, and that level of confidence. And that's something, I think, which you see much more in the new Ireland. We present ourselves as a gateway to Europe from an investment perspective, so be that either from a commercial or a regulatory standpoint. We're English speaking, some would say rather badly or poorly, but we manage. We're also part of the Eurozone, which I suppose distinguishes us from our near neighbour in the United Kingdom. And we're a common law jurisdiction, which I think is useful for Americans coming to Ireland in the sense that they don't have that process of demystification of another legal system. So that's quite significant in real terms. In terms of the markets which we have the main securities market, which Aileen will talk about in the context of equities. We have our junior market, which is the enterprise securities market. We have a market which we regulate ourselves. The other markets are regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. That's the global exchange market. And we have a new venture, the Atlantic securities market, which Aileen will describe. In terms of the profile, we now have issuers from over 80 countries, which is a significant testament to our outward focus. We have over 4,000 issuers listed with us and 32,000 securities. 25,000 of those securities are fixed income and 7,000 are investment funds. I like this map. We used to have it colored in green, and I remember doing a presentation to a New York law firm, and unfortunately we made the great mistake of coloring in the northern part of Korea. And a very erudite partner put his hand up and he said, Mr. Scully, I would like to congratulate you on listing a bond from North Korea. And I said, well, unfortunately, that's a coloring error on our part. But you can see I suppose the diversity of relationships we've built up. We have quite significant activities now in Latin America. Obviously, in recent times, those have been somewhat challenged. But again, if you look at the influence of the diaspora The Irish diaspora in Latin America, that's quite significant. You know, if you go to Buenos Aires, it's very difficult to find a law firm which doesn't have an Irish name in it, O'Farrell or whatever, and people talk to you wildly about the influence of the O'Higginses in Latin America. In terms of why listing in Europe at all, well, perhaps people might say the European experiment is too complicated. We tend to be slightly more positive in our outlook. We think that certainly international companies want to access European investors. EFAMA, the European Fund Association, tell us that there's 19 trillion worth of assets under management in Europe. So that's a very big market. And if you want to access Europe, we present an opportunity for investment mandates either in euros or if you need a European listing. In terms of the, I suppose, the international activity, I pointed to the activity in the listing of fixed income or debt, as we call it, investment funds. The listing, from our perspective, is not as you might understand it in terms of the New York Stock Exchange. It's a technical listing. People list on the Irish Stock Exchange for regulatory reasons in order to gain access to the European market. We've built up a strong reputation in this area. Our main competitors are London and Luxembourg, but at the moment, we year after year, we continue to outstrip them in terms of new business gained. In terms of the product segmentation, we first made our name from 1990 onwards in the field of structured finance, particularly asset-backed securities. And we built up expertise. We hired people who were coming back, diaspora who had emigrated to Britain, to the United States. We hired these people. We put the expertise in place. We hired people from other nationalities, and we built up expertise. And gradually over time, that expertise was accepted by the marketplace, and we became a recognized market leader in this field. These are some of the names who list with us. Some of the major US issuers list their bonds with us. Again, this is the purpose of this listing is distribution to European investors. So they see Ireland very much as a gateway to investment and to accessing investors in Europe. In terms of our funds business, we now have in excess of 7,000 individual funds listed with us. If you look at the spread of managers, primarily they come from the United States and from the UK. We obviously have managers who come from a number of other centres. The growth of, I suppose, listing on the Irish Stock Exchange has pretty much paralleled the growth of international financial services in Dublin. Dublin is now recognised as a vibrant international financial centre, and we continue to educate people and to build businesses in that particular area. And the linkage between ourselves and the United States is critical in this particular venture. I'll pass you back on to Aileen now in terms of taking you through the Atlantic securities market.
Thank you, Gerard. Michael, you said something earlier about to do something innovative, to make a real impact, you have to innovate in the right time, in the right place, and tell the right people about it. So what I'm going to talk to you about now is, I hope, something that might fall into that category, and I believe that the people in this room are the right people to know about it on this side of the Atlantic. So we have developed, as Gerard mentioned, a new market called the Atlantic securities market. And why have we done this? I suppose for global issuers, companies that are operating at a really global level, they face effectively a binary choice between taking a listing in the US or taking a listing in Europe. And dual listing has been seen traditionally as being quite complicated. It is expensive, and it can be problematic. And so there really is no seamless, comprehensive way of enabling issuers to take a listing both in the US and Europe without some bumps in the road. And so what we've done is developed a market to address that particular gap. And it's called the Atlantic securities market, and it is specifically designed to meet the needs of US listed issuers who wish to also take a European listing in a seamless way. How does it work? Very straightforward. We've created a streamlined documentation process, streamlined reporting. Effectively, what we are looking at is a market that is very much aligned with the SEC regime. So, for example, if you have, as an issuer, if you're being admitted to the market in the US, the documentation that you use for that purpose can also be used for accessing the Atlantic securities market. And what that gives you then is a European quotation and a European listing, which makes it more interesting and more attractive for European investors that Jared referred to earlier on, where Euro mandates are quite common. And so it opens up a whole new window for US companies, US listed companies that want to diversify their shareholder base and to access funds from Europe. So who is it for? Well, we think that there's effectively four buckets, if you like. First of all, US IPO candidates, people who are thinking of IPOing, maybe not right now, it's a little bit bumpy at the moment. But what this does, this market is pretty much a seamless bolt-on to the processes that a US company would have to undergo if it was listing on either the NYSE or NASDAQ. And I think that so what it offers them is reduced complexity. There's an awful lot of M&A activity, obviously going back and forth between Europe and the US. We have found that on many occasions where a US company is acquiring a European firm, very often the European shareholders become disenfranchised because they can no longer, not all of them can hold US listed stock. And without the Euro quote or without a European listing, they have to sell the stock. And that causes a problem in relation to flowback. So this effectively resolves that situation where the company can obviously proceed with the US listing, can take a dual listing, and that means that the shareholders remain intact. There are also, I think it's very interesting when you look at the landscape of where European investment managers are. Typically, there is a level of underweighting in certain sectors, and there are sectors where the US is very strong. So the new technology, new economy sectors, biotech, pharma, medtech. These are sectors where European investment managers tend to be underweight. And we think that this is a good window for those companies to use to access those investors. And then finally, obviously, serial capital raisers who have a big demand for capital. Clearly having more than one window is of significant benefit to those companies. So what does it actually deliver in real terms? It delivers access to European investors. It gives you a broader, more diversified investor base. It's incredibly seamlessly connected. There are no bumps. Trading is fungible. Trading, clearing, and settlement is integrated. So there isn't that problem that you would have had in the past in relation to split liquidity. Clearly, there's additional benefits in relation to extended trading hours and support on the sell side from Europe. So overall, what it delivers is a very significant value add for US listed issuers who want to pursue a European listing. Why us? Why not somebody else? I think the first thing to say is that we have proven that we have very significant fungible trading capability, because effectively the Irish and the UK market, for example, operate in a very dual listing sort of environment. So it works, and we're well used to managing, for example, multi-currency trading. We are, as Jared mentioned, a leading gateway exchange, and for all the other reasons that Jared alluded to earlier on, it's easy to do business with us. And so what I want to do, I suppose, in conclusion, is just to say to you that we wanted to tell you about this. We're very aware of the very powerful network that is Irish America, and we would very much welcome your support in getting the word out on this new innovative market. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you both very much. That was really interesting. Thank you. That concludes our luncheon today. So you're welcome to hang out or whatever. It's a lot warmer here than it is in New York, I can tell. So you might as well stay here. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for attending. Thank you.